Long before Homestead Rescue ever appeared on TV, Marty Rainey was already living a life most people wouldn't even dream of trying. He worked as a logger on floating camps, lived around bears, and raised his family deep in Alaska's harsh wilderness. But the tough guy you see on the show is only part of the story. Behind it all is something much more intense, dramatic, and complicated than what the show reveals. And in recent years, some surprising controversies and personal problems have made many people wonder one thing. What really happened to Marty Rainey? Marty Rainey's story begins back on July 28, 1956, in North Bend, Washington, where he basically grew up surrounded by nature. Even as a kid, he never liked city life. His childhood home was at the end of Mount Si Road with the closest neighbor a whole mile away. And for Marty, that was just perfect. Growing up at the bottom of Mount Tenerife, he spent his days climbing, scrambling around, and exploring with no special training at all, just lots of curiosity and energy. By the time he was 12 or 13, he was hiking 35 miles through the Cascade Mountains like it was nothing. That pure love for being outdoors only got stronger and stronger. So strong that at 16, he quit school, started working as a logger, and still wanted even more wilderness. By 18, he made the choice that would shape his whole life. He moved to Alaska. His very first look at Alaska came from the front of a 737 airplane, a moment he always remembered. A friend who worked for the airline brought him up to the cockpit as they took off, giving him a bird's-eye view of the rugged land he would someday call home. For Marty, it felt like looking down from heaven at the place he was supposed to be. When he finally got there, his first Alaskan home wasn't even on solid ground. It was a floating logging camp near Prince of Wales Island, totally off the grid, literally floating on the water. Logging back then was hard, beautiful work. And Marty got there just in time to see the last days of that way of life. The trees were huge. They'd cut them into 40-foot sections, tie them together into giant rafts, and build entire living spaces right on top. Houses, fourplexes, trailers. Everything sat on these floating platforms that boats pulled from one isolated bay to another. After marrying his girlfriend Molly Rowell, Marty and Molly felt a strong pull to go even deeper into the wilderness, farther from towns, traffic, and just about every comfort most people depend on. They eventually built their first home near the shores of Chilkoot Lake, about 30 miles north of Haines. It was a beautiful spot, but they didn't pick it just for the pretty views. The streams nearby were full of spawning salmon, basically providing a built-in food source. But of course, salmon bring bears, and lots of them. Marty later talked about those early days as completely chaotic, with huge brown bears wandering around like they owned the place. All of them fighting for the same shiny coho salmon in the waterways. Together, Marty and Molly pushed through years of wilderness struggle, moving from one remote corner of Alaska to another before finally settling outside Haines, still very much in bear territory. Their life together became as tough and raw as the land around them, and before long, they had 4 children. But those early years weren't easy at all. Marty worked constantly just to keep food on the table for Molly and their newborn daughter, Melanie. And then came a scary moment. Molly went into labor out on their homestead, and a dangerous problem forced them onto an emergency bush plane heading for Whitehorse in the Yukon Territory. That's where Melanie was safely born. Marty would later talk about those days with complete honesty, calling them truly hard-scrabble times. After long, back-breaking hours of logging, he'd come home exhausted, hungry, and skinnier by the week, sometimes hoping he could catch just one salmon along the edge of Chilkoot Lake, just enough to feed himself and Molly for the night. As hard as it was, he often said those struggles shaped him in ways nothing else ever could. The Raineys welcomed their third child, Misty. In 1979, the same year they packed up and moved to the Wasilla area. This new location, close to Denali National Park, opened a door Marty had been slowly moving toward for years. It was here that he started getting into mountain climbing expeditions. His first climb up Denali came in 1986, and it was an experience that stayed stuck in his memory forever. Pushing toward the final 20 feet of the top, he felt tears running down his face. Tears that immediately froze in the brutal cold. Standing at the very top of North America filled him with amazement. There was no urge to cheer or stick a flag in the ground. Instead, he felt small, humbled, and overshadowed by 360 degrees of towering ridges and sharp, icy wilderness stretching on forever in every direction. That raw, magnificent view matched the one he'd fallen in love with years earlier from the cockpit of that 737. The wild world, untouched and unforgiving, was exactly where he felt at home. By 1998, he was officially leading climbing expeditions. And when Alaska's fierce winters shut down climbing season, Marty simply switched gears. He started Alaska Stone and Log, focusing his attention on building and fixing homesteads using the most basic materials: stone, timber, and hard work. Living off the grid required courage and patience, but the Raineys accepted it. They learned to understand the land's rhythm, surviving without plumbing, heating systems, running water, or electricity. Over time, the harsh environment didn't just test them, it made them stronger. Throughout the 90s, Marty's deep knowledge of Alaska and his musical background made him a natural guide for documentary film crews. He helped guide the team filming Alaska Spirit of the Wild in 1997. And 2 years later, for Climb Against the Odds, he did several jobs: climber, musician, and second cameraman. His real big break, however, didn't come until 2013 when he appeared on Ultimate Survival Alaska, which ran from 2013 to 2016 on the National Geographic Channel. The show dropped expert survivalists into the middle of Alaska's wild wilderness and basically told them, good luck. Teams battled brutal terrain, harsh weather, and challenges that looked like they were designed by Mother Nature on a really bad day. From the moment Marty showed up, he became a standout. And honestly, it wasn't hard to see why. He wasn't just pretending to be a rugged outdoorsman, he actually was one. After more than 4 decades of living off the land, he moved through that wilderness like someone who knew it personally. Viewers watched him hunt, fish, trap, and build shelters from natural materials as if he were simply cleaning up his own backyard. His toughness, quick thinking, and calmness under pressure made him both a competitor to fear and a fan favorite to watch. The show got massive attention for its raw, edge-of-your-seat look at Alaska's dangers: cliff climbs that made palms sweat, travels across deadly terrain, and blizzards that seemed almost purposely cruel. But perhaps the wildest twist was that there was no cash prize, no trophy, no giant check. It was all about pride and proving you could go head-to-head with the Alaskan wilderness. Still, Marty's fame truly took off after Ultimate Survival Alaska ended. His next chapter started in 2016 when he became the main star of Homestead Rescue. The idea didn't start with him. The Discovery Channel came to Marty with a concept they described as a return to their early, authentic, boots-on-the-ground style. What grabbed Marty was the mission. Real people, real problems, real solutions. No fake drama, just helping struggling homesteaders survive. Marty later explained that Discovery had done an amazing job finding participants. Everyday people living off-grid for their own reasons, not the stereotypical doomsday types TV often focuses on. He praised the network for seeking out genuine families trying to make a life beyond the reach of the modern world. After a month of thinking it over, his children, Misty and Matt, joined the effort, turning the series into a full family operation. But Marty had one big condition: authenticity. He wasn't interested in scripts or staged conflicts. He wanted raw emotion, real stakes, and genuine interactions. And the producers agreed because Marty meets each homesteader for the first time when he shows up. Every moment plays out with real tension, real vulnerability, and real urgency. Compared to Ultimate Survival Alaska, Marty believes Homestead Rescue is the more authentic series, and the reason becomes clear once you see what the Raineys take on. Each episode introduces someone trying to live off the land, but failing in dangerous ways. Food shortages, no clean water, wildlife threats, failing structures, or weather conditions that don't forgive mistakes. The Raineys don't show up as celebrities. They arrive as hands-on problem solvers. They figure out what's broken, identify exactly what the family needs most, and make a plan to turn the homestead into something safe, sustainable, and functional. Each family member brings a specialty. Marty is the master of the wild, hunting, tracking, trapping, building shelters, and reading the land like a familiar story. Misty is the sustainability expert, strengthening food systems through gardening and raising livestock. Matt is the craftsman, a builder capable of turning raw materials into sturdy, practical structures. Together, they become a lifeline, stepping in when people are on the edge and helping struggling dreamers turn pure survival into a real way of life. Throughout the series, we see the Rainey family take on challenges that would overwhelm just about anyone. We're talking brutal weather, unpredictable wildlife, and sudden setbacks that could wipe out months of progress in a single moment. But episode after episode, their determination never slips. Their mission stays the same. Help homesteaders reclaim their land, rebuild their future, and remind them why they started this journey in the first place. And by the end of each story, you can see the transformation. Families walk away with a homestead that's more sustainable, more efficient, and far more livable. All thanks to the Raineys' experience, creativity, and relentless work ethic. When it comes to construction, Marty and his family are known for being resourceful. They do everything possible to reuse whatever they find on site, turning scrap, discarded materials, or forgotten structures into clever, practical solutions. But when a problem is too big or too dangerous to solve with materials on hand, the team turns to the network for support. If the situation needs a major upgrade, Discovery steps in with the money needed to make those significant improvements. Homestead Rescue has earned praise for its emphasis on self-sufficiency and sustainable living, especially at a time when many viewers are thinking about living closer to the land. But like most reality shows, it hasn't escaped criticism. Some viewers argue that a few scenes feel overly dramatic or staged for television, sparking debate about how real the rescue process truly is. In 2018, a dramatic incident involving a drone operator pushed Marty Rainey into the spotlight for a completely different reason. Drone pilot Justin Persley had been flying his brand-new drone in the Hatcher Pass area when Marty, convinced he was being filmed without permission, confronted him. The situation got heated quickly. Marty ended up damaging Persley's drone, causing Persley to file for a restraining order. Raney argued that the drone had been flying extremely low over his property, following him as he moved, and that he believed the flight was illegal based on a call he made to a trooper dispatcher. Surprisingly, the confrontation was resolved much more peacefully than it began. The two men agreed to meet later that morning in a grocery store parking lot to talk things through. Persley said that during this meeting, Marty apologized and paid him the full cost of the drone in cash. Persley then told the courthouse to drop the restraining order request. Both men shared their stories on social media, which quickly drew public attention and divided opinions online. Marty described hearing a buzzing sound while sharpening his chainsaw and looking up to see a drone hovering directly above him and his cabin. He later said the drone followed him for nearly 1,000 feet as he walked back to his vehicle. On the other side, Persley explained that he and his father-in-law were simply testing out the new drone from a public pull-off when Marty approached them. He remembered being surprised to see Rainey's signature cowboy hat appear as the TV personality demanded to know why they had been flying over his property. Persley's father-in-law insisted the drone had been flying high enough to avoid crossing onto private land. When troopers arrived, the accounts differed again. Pursley claimed officers assured him the drone flight was legal, while Marty said the trooper was unsure and admitted he didn't know the specifics of drone law in that area. Trooper spokeswoman Megan Peters later said that details were still unclear until the assigned trooper could be reached. A short time later, Raney posted an update on his social media page, saying he had spent hours driving across Alaska and thinking about the incident. He offered to replace Pursley's drone and expressed regret for the damage. According to Pursley, they met again. Marty apologized and he paid the exact amount the drone had cost. Raney even offered to hire him to film drone footage for an upcoming project, but Pursley declined. Then in 2020, Marty faced another wave of public backlash. This time for an old song from his past. A track from his 1997 album titled Adam and Steve began circulating online, drawing widespread criticism for its homophobic lyrics. While most of the album consisted of harmless country songs, the final track stood out for its commentary against the growing acceptance of homosexuality. The lyrics referenced outdated views, criticized gay pride, and contrasted them with what Raney framed as traditional relationships. The controversy resurfaced during a larger conversation about the workplace culture on certain Discovery shows following reporting on the disappearance of production assistant Terrence Woods. Some former crew members described the environment as unwelcoming and resistant to progressive ideas. Within that broader discussion, Raney's decades-old song drew renewed attention.